dormitory in some college, and I think this gentleman Mark Zuckerberg. So he had had a fallout with his girlfriend, and he wanted to keep track of her, and things started from there. And today it has become a sort of a dinosaur, a sort of an animal which nobody knows what it is, how it can be controlled, what should be done with it. Even states are not able to control the Facebook juggernaut, as we call it. So Facebook primarily comprises of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. I think between these three sorts of social media tools or utilities or platform which has been offered to us, I think most of our life is primarily being spent in the social media tools. And given the total digital transformation and lack of social interaction for last nearly around 10 months, we have reached a stage where our life primarily revolves of the social media, because we work on a laptop, we do fun and frolic on a laptop, our education is on a laptop. Literally everything happens on this particular medium. And when we are with this medium on a day in and day out basis, so whatever time we get extra, it goes into the social media. And with a couple of people, they got addicted to a manner that social media has become their prime occupation. So this is what is social media, which I generally term as anti-social media, and it is in the midst of a crisis. The social media is not in midst of the crisis. The society is in the midst of the crisis. The crisis has been created by the social media. So we are being impacted by social media and not the other way around. We have not been able to impact the social media. So from this where we start, and as I told you last time, so I come from the IPS background, and I took volunteer retirement on 31st of March this year and moved on to basically entrepreneurship. And I intend to create a technology consultancy marketplace, which will come by towards the end of March or early April, given the nature of preparation and other detailing, software development, and all those things which are required. So we move further as we got into the social media. So primarily what has happened in last 30, 40 years, anything to deal with computer code, we feel that that computer code will solve our problems. Precisely the same thing happened with the social media. And when social media came into existence, and more so in the year 2008, 9 and 10, when we started to getting know of Facebook, it was such a great experience. It was an experience of once in a lifetime, friends and relatives whom we have lost for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They appeared out of nowhere, and we were able to build a social relationship which was one of its kind. A 24/7, 365 lifelong social relationship, and not only by way of talking, by way of messaging, by video, by songs, by personal interaction, literally anything and everything. And that was the comfort level, I think, which the world was yearning for. And we lapped onto the social media. We thought that this computer code and this particular platform will be able to elevate us from the disjointed, isolated living in which we are in, and we'll get on to a totally different stage and phase of human existence. And we thought we are reaching the epitome of human existence, where social communication is literally nearly completely taken over by social media, and our physical existence will either submerge or synthetically exist, or in an organic manner exist with the social media. But as we moved further and we got comfortable with social media, and social media became a reality of life. The social media became a reality of life. We started taking it for granted. There was nothing exceptional about it. It was like water, air, things of that nature. So we thought, okay, this is there. Now, what all can we do with the social media? And slowly, over a period of time, literally all our social activity, besides our personal activity, started coming onto the social media. It was data harvesting, it was manipulation, it was elections, it was women trafficking, smuggling, money laundering. You name it, you have it. And social media, over a period of time, has been able to create a humongous database. And that is the database which these big companies control. And Facebook being the leader of the pack. So this database has data regarding dynamic and real time interactions of the people who themselves have interacted on that particular platform. So the integrity and honesty of their data is nearly confirmed and can be used in wide and varied areas for wide and varied purposes of monetization of different types, of blackmailing of different type, of recruiting of different type, of women trafficking of different type, of lovemaking of different type, of blackmailing of different type. And this is where social media has finally brought us. And today we are in the vortex, we are in quicksand, we are in a whirlpool of social media. Neither can we live with it, nor can we die with it, nor can we find out some ways and means by which it becomes a very adjunct to our physical existence. How we are basically able to navigate the social media environment or the anti-social media environment will decide of the level, quality, nature of human beings which we are. So with artificial intelligence and the social media, two coming together, the nature of synthesis which would be created will define our existence, our social existence, our economic existence, our political existence, and human, and basically the existence of humanity and the nature of growth trajectory which we check. So the universal solvent of all problems, that is the computer code, might be today is turning out to be a universal creator of nearly all problems, sustaining problems, and lots of other things. So any technology is a two-edged sword, is a double-edged sword. So there are lots of positives which happen, tons and tons of positives, and we allow it to happen the way it is, like a jungle growth. Then necessarily, as time passes by, and when the technology matures and when it has given all types of fulfillment what is expected of the technology, then it starts going on the wrong side. And there are a large number of technologies where the first users, first adopters, and the best adopters and the best users of those technologies have been criminals, have been organized gangs, have been hackers, have been terrorists, have been social media data extractors, data manipulators of the type of Facebook, of Cambridge Analytica. There have been even political parties who have come onto this fray to exploit the electorate in a manner which was completely unimaginable till around a couple of years back. So we move further. So we just try to explain you as to what this computer code is and how this computer code helps, does not help, where it stands, which way it has to go. We are not in a position to understand the data life cycle of the data which goes into the social media. There is too much of talk about data protection, privacy, and lots of things of that nature. But actually, on ground, nothing is happening. Today, also, everything is under control of Facebook and the Facebook family and large of other social media platforms which are there. So once you put your click, after that, what happens? The whole data goes into somebody else's control. It is there for a lifetime. It cannot be erased. The few legislations which has happened in last couple of years, they have tried to bring some amount of sanity into the system, but I think still we have a long, long way to go. So we move further as to what is the thought process, where we are, what we intend to achieve, and this is a couple of writings which has happened in last couple of years. So somebody says your happiness was hacked, and somebody says the anti-social media, how Facebook disconnects us and undermines democracy. So what we take as being completely connected has systems, has processes, has business models, has crooks behind them, which basically tries to disconnect you with, with your fellow beings, disconnect you with reality, and the only thing which you start liking over a period of time is the social media, and the social media. We were conducting a small program in one of the girls' colleges in Bangalore, which is known as the Jyoti Nivas College. I run a program called Bangalore Cyber Security Awareness Initiative. So in that we have two sessions, one on social media and gaming, and consequent to that we have a certain session on digital de-addiction. And when we are talking about with one of these participants, he said that in normal physical life, there is no love, there is no affection, there is no appreciation, there is no sympathy, there is no empathy. And when you get into the social media, there is so much of love and so much of empathy and so much of affection. And that is how she likes to interact on the social media. And she's not very comfortable with the physical life, the physical social sort of interaction, which all of us grew with, all of us love and like, and all of us are feeling that during these COVID-19 days, we have been completely got disconnected, though the digital connect has always been there and has been very thick and fast. So and Vivek Vadva and Alex Salkeva, these are the people who were basically geeks. They spent decades together in creating the
Sir,
systems.
1 minute. Sir,
Yeah,
slides are not seen properly, sir. Slides.
slides are not seen properly.
Yeah, I see.
When their full slide I'm showing.
No, it is minimized, sir. Slides are getting minimized.
Now, now,
No, sir, it is shown down only towards the down slides.
I don't know why. 1 second, I'll just close and see. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Mm.
Now it is fine, sir.
It's all right.
Yeah, now it is fine, sir.
I'll just do the full screen also.
Yeah, okay, sir.
How is it?
Now it is fine, sir.
Okay, so we'll reach. We were here, I suppose, right?
Yeah, here only, sir.
Correct. So we are talking about this Vivek Vadva and Alex Alveka. These are the people who have been into digital technology completely head over heels, and over, I think, 15, 20 years of the digital existence, they realize that literally their happiness, everything is taken over. I have also heard of a couple of people who are extremely intelligent, they are doctorates, they understand everything, and they have got addicted even to things like email. So it's not that your level of education, your capability, that decides anything. These technologies are at a level where it finally impacts your neurosystem in a manner where it is impacted in nearly the same fashion as it happens with gambling or with liquor and things of that nature. So that is the never they say it secretes dopamine, and dopamine finally makes you addictive, and they have been planning this whole exercise very very diligently. So sometimes they will wait that for the like, so they will not they will allow you to wait for some time. So most of the things which you expect, though there is a communication from the other side, but a bit of a delay is done for you. So their job is to attract your attention to the maximum possible. It is known as the attention extraction economy. So we move further. This is where we are. And recently we had on Netflix The Social Dilemma. So this is a movie, I think 1.5, 2 hours, this movie. And this basically the protagonists in these movies are not actors and actresses. The protagonists in the movie are basically people who have been in the social media domain, who have created systems, who have tried to improve within the organizations like Google and Facebook. These are the people who have been researchers. These are people who have been writing, who have been evaluating people, who have been into social psychology, who have been into cognitive areas of human brain. So they have come together. Why they came together? The simple reason is that they realize that we are moving in a direction which is not correct. So every technology cannot be left unhindered. I think might be the simple of the technologies, your bulbs and tube lights, they could have gone unhindered. But nuclear technology, we did not leave unhindered. We have protocols, we have treaties, we have systems, we have controls of a manner which is unimaginable. And that is the reason why we feel pretty secure that the nuclear button is only with a couple of people in couple of countries. They are in responsible positions. They don't have the capability to dilute systems, to fix systems, to compress systems, to abridge systems. But social media, the button is with somebody else. It is not with nation states. It's not with people who have been mandated legally to be responsible. It is not with people for whom mercenary making of money is not their only pastime. So, if you get into the privacy policies of any of these organizations, you will realize that it is so complicated that you will take days together if you intend to understand. And when you get into any of these apps and any of these platforms, you are in a hurry. Now, somehow you get into the system because your friend has invited or something is there. So you get into the system as early as you can and you finally click. Even if you have time, nothing is going to make a difference because what you have to finally agree and concur and consent is something which you are not aware of, and there will be some third party clause, there will be some innovation, creativity clause, there will be think clauses of all nature of clauses would be there. And finally you are stuck up. What do? You have absolutely no idea. So the only way we will start with some amount of guidance and advisory as we go all throughout this lecture, and that sort of a guidance is that you should be there as little as possible, as much as you feel is sufficient enough for your social interactions to happen. But for social interaction, nothing else should be there. There will be location and things of that nature, and pictures and other things. It should be as much as it can be avoided, and generic pictures and generic information can be there. There are two instances which I'll tell you as we move further. So one was in a case of a burglar. So the police was on their patrol and it was right during the day, broad daylight. So there's a house open, they get inside and they find that there's a burglar there who has lifted a couple of items in that house and sitting peacefully and having some beer. So they asked him, "Ki, you are a burglar, you have picked up all these things. Why you are not in a hurry?" So he said, "I've seen their Facebook post, they will come after a week. So there is no purpose of being in a hurry." So coolly he thought he will have some beer and then he will scoot from that place. But unfortunately for him, the police landed and it was not based on any information or any clue. They were just moving all around the place as a part of their normal crime patrol and they came inside and this fellow was caught. On every photograph which you put into the system, I think there are 17 pieces of data which it throws up, inclusive of the camera, inclusive of everything. And I think we don't need even 17 pieces of the data. The 17 data points are a bit too much. Might be three, four of these data points with your geolocation and couple of other things which are already available on the social media and the internet will be sufficient enough to identify as to where you are, who you are, and what nuisance can be done to you. So this is one story. The other story is that there's a young girl, 15 years of age. So her father gets a mail from a store saying that your daughter is 1 month pregnant and she bought this and she bought that on her. And the father was furious. He checked up with his daughter. Daughter said there's nothing of that nature. He came to the shop and blasted the shop owner. The shop owner pleaded guilty and he apologized. And after that, the story ended there. But after another 3 or 4 months, he gets another mail and he says that your daughter is in the fifth month of pregnancy. He was furious. He came back again, and this time the shopkeeper was not ready to listen. He said that is precisely what is the case. This is what she has been buying in all these days, and necessarily this is the case. There cannot be anything else. And he went on cross-checking and finally realized that daughter was pregnant, 4 months or 5 months pregnant, and what the shopkeeper was saying is the reality. So who knows the reality? The social media platforms knows the reality. 64 likes. Facebook knows what you are. In around, say, 200 likes, they know you as good as your parents and your friends know. 300 likes, they know you better than your spouse. So basically, you have become a digital tool. You have been hacked. Your main asset today, which is the biggest asset of human beings today, data is the biggest asset. It might take some more years to declare data as an asset class, as they call it, same as money, house, property, vehicles, anything. So this itself will be declared as a data class as teams come by. But as it stands now also, if you are divested, if you are harvested, if you are researched on your data, that will throw up information of a kind which is completely unimaginable, might be of a kind you will not be ready to accept and believe that I am this human being. So, one more advisory that would be that you should be bothered about your digital footprint, about your digital persona. Your digital persona today is the real persona. People will decide who you are, what you are through your digital persona. They will never go and find out as to what you are actually in the physical world, and it is not humanly possible to do that because today are widely dispersed all across the world. Still, we keep interacting. Still, we make groups. Still, we give business deals. Still, we interact. Still, we marry. Still, literally anything and everything is being done through the digital medium. So, your digital footprint, your positive digital persona, will decide how far you will go in life. Once somebody invited from Indian Express to deliver a lecture. This was the pre-COVID-19 days. So I thought I'll explain as to who I am and all that. And I told this lady that I'll give you a brief description of who I am. And then she says, no, sir, it's not required. I've gone through your complete profile, not only one profile. I've gone through YouTube videos, I've gone through this, I've gone through that. I think that was way beyond which I could imagine of. And there was another engagement with Maharashtra government when I was in the IPO that particular point in time. I get an invite from the government of Maharashtra saying that they want me to be on board Maharashtra cyber security project, which was a 838 crore project. And I said, I have not applied. They have not cross checked with me. Nothing has happened. How do they know so much about me? They are convinced of the fact that I will be an ideal asset for a huge, humongous 838 crore project. And that also with the people of the likes of IT, Bombay director, some retired vice admiral, somebody who is the head of the scientific advisory group and also ex officio advisor to the defense minister of India. So I could not fathom out, and anyway, I felt happy. I accepted that offer. After accepting that offer, I came on board and we had lots of meetings. We started discussing things. So one fine day, I bumped across a guy who was from uh, Price Waterhouse. So he was from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then we started discussing, and finally he said that the Maharashtra government had tasked him to do a complete research of my digital persona, and he had created a 23-page report on me. I think way back in the year 2013 or 2014, regarding who I am, what I wear, what I talk, what is my experience, what is my capability, my thought process, my philosophy, literally anything and everything to the extent whether my tie reaches the belt where it should be accurately be to that level is the level of research which is being done today. A picture will be able to make out from a distance of at minimum, I think at least 2 meters or a maximum of 2 meters or even beyond, depending on the capability of that particular camera. They can get your fingerprints. So fingerprints, which was supposed to be one of its kind identification stuff, so that itself has got completely diluted today. It has become dangerous as well. So this is broadly where we stand. And Social Dilemma, I would request all of you to go through the movie or documentary called Social Dilemma, and you will be in a position to understand and realize as to what this game is all about. And necessarily all of us use social media. There's absolutely no other way out. We cannot be social outcast. We cannot be somebody who is living in a completely forlorn world because the world has finally converged there. But there is a necessity that we use the social media only as much I know for only the purposes for which we feel and keep ourselves secure. I something which I call as a responsible digital living. So, what is a responsible digital living? Irresponsible digital living is your capability to navigate the internet and the connected systems to best of your advantage for your professional growth, for your knowledge, and for improving your capability and expertise, and make yourself known to the world simultaneously, keeping yourself secure, safe, and that you are not exploited in the digital world. So, this is what I describe as a responsible digital living. And as we move further, I think all of us We'll have to get into responsible digital living. There's absolutely no other way out. Otherwise, you risk yourself and you land into all sorts of cyber crimes, which all of you are aware you'd be facing it on a regular basis as well. So this is about the social dilemma, this movie which I've been talking about. What is social media? So this has been the backdrop to make you understand as to what has been happening all around. But as there is a necessity of every single issue which we deal in science and technology, and it is necessary even in political thought, in sociology, literally anything, everything, it is better to describe something. It is better to define something. And if you define something, you know what it exactly is. And most of the times in law, first we have a definitive basically a definition section, and then we have the ingredient. What is social media? Social media is any digital tool that allows users to quickly create and share content with public. Social media encompasses a wide range of websites and apps. So this is one definition of social media, which primarily gives you an angle and which gives you as to what it is, what you do out of it, what happens out of it, what is at the other end, that is a different story altogether. And as we move further, so that story, we will try and we will keep unraveling that story. And by the time we end this lecture, I think you'll be reasonably well off in understanding social media from literally any and every dimension, and certainly making yourself safe. And you'll get a very, very fair amount of feeling and understanding as to what you should do in the social media and what you should not do in the social media. And if you are a parent, how to control your children, and what should be allowed, what should not be allowed, for what time it should be allowed. And there are ways and means by which you can check as to what is happening on the social media. So your being vigilant and alert is critical. Once I asked the class teacher, so you go through the social media profiles of all your students, and your understanding of these students will completely change. And necessarily that happened. And those were public profiles. So this is where you are. You go to Instagram and see your students, and you'll realize as to what they are, where they come from, what is their thought process, how different it is from your thought process. You can also find people who have the capability to do all fun and frolic and also do academically very well. And there will also be people who will be completely immersed in social media, and they will not be productive. They will not be able to use the intellect which they have and improve upon their intellect for their personal personality development, for professional gain, for educational advancement, and finally to get a placement. Life before social media. So life before social media was totally different. I don't know how many of you are old teachers or who would be in the age of 40, 35, 40 and above. I am of nearly 55 years of age, and I can tell you what was the mode of social interaction. When I came to Delhi, I come from backwaters of Jharkhand. So when I came to Delhi, leave aside social media, my only interaction with my father was two postcard letters I used to send on Mondays and Thursdays. So that was my interaction with my parents, and slowly STD came, and we were able to make calls. What a discovery it was! What a fun frolic it was! And it went on and on from that Sam Pitroda days. Things have kept on improving, and today we have reached an age and stage wherein everything is instantaneous. You can interact on a social media mode. So people like us have gone through all the processes from the dark, dingy existence when we got into the first fax machines. And it was so much of fun. We didn't have to write. Otherwise, I remember the first tutorial which I wrote when I joined college was 25 pages, and it took me the whole night to write those 25 pages. How life has moved in these years. Only people who have gone through the earlier days would realize. And social interaction primarily meant one to one. It was very few times when it was on telephone. Telephone was primarily meant for communication. It was barely meant for social media, and the cost of communication was so much that nobody had the guts or the capability or the economic strength to keep on talking over the telephone as we do now on the digital medium, because everything has fallen to a level where price does not matter today, even for the poorest of the people. And the penetration of digital media and smartphones on mobile phones have reached to a level which is completely unimaginable. So this is where we are. So from that mode, we came on to analog and think, I don't know whether some pre-analog. Then we came into digital, computer, automation, AI, patterns, correlations, predictions, and we don't know where we are heading to. So social media, an unknown platform even today. Actually, social media is an unknown platform even today, because you are seeing only the surface of it. It is something like any of you who would have done the OSI model. So in the OSI model, this is the application layer. So what you are seeing is only the application layer. You are seeing only the social interaction layer. You are not seeing layer after layer, the way it has been designed, the way it is monetized, the way it is used as a tool for lots and lots of things in which we will never like to get associated. I think even it can be used for a distributed denial of service attack. So these are the thoughts. These are the ways and means by which you can enter into a system, gain control over a system by variety of means. It can be social engineering. In social engineering, the primary thing today is fishing, whale fishing, fishing, spear fishing, and whale fishing. And invest digital social world. So that world, digital social world, I think from your email to Instagram. I think everything has been linked, inclusive of your website, what connects to where, what information goes in which manner, where it connects as, what is the API. When there's a huge amount of debate going on between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica regarding the nature of data which has been shared. So till such time, all of us believed that Facebook does not share data. It monetizes data, all of us are aware of, but it does not share data. So that was our understanding of things. But when the whole thing came to public view, came to the public domain, it came to the daylight, and then we realized that Facebook has been for over a long period of time. They have been giving data, they have been sharing data for a price with their associates, and they're not one or two. There are thousands of associates which they have all across the face of this earth. And Cambridge Analytica was one of them. And what damage Cambridge Analytica has done to the US presidential system, to Brexit, and last large number of other political democratic exercises which happen in different parts of the world. I think all of it is not also completely documented, but suffice to say that the capability which Cambridge Analytica with the back end engine of Facebook had was completely unimaginable. It was so humongous in nature. It was so path breaking in a negative sense of the term, that it was becoming extremely difficult for even the law enforcement agencies to get into it, fathom out as to what it is, and take action thereupon. Because this data, it remains either with you or it remains with the server of the social media platform which is not located in this country. So any type of investigation becomes extremely difficult. You can just reach to a level, beyond that you will not be able to reach. So this is the strength of the social media, this is the weakness of the social media as far as users are concerned, and strength of the social media as far as the social media platforms are concerned. How does the tech side happen? Tech side is what the companies are bothered about. Social side is what we are bothered about. Tech side is what the data creates out of it. The social media side is what like and compliments and social media filter and echo that creates for you, and how you are in a very good mode while you are completely isolated. So that is the social side of the whole thing. Data. Now, data is being extracted out of you. You are basically a digital coolie working for a company like Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram or YouTube or whatever the company might be. So you are feeding data, data, data. Otherwise, they would have needed a whole battery of thousands and lakhs of people to feed that data. Where does storage happen? Storage happens somewhere else. And that storage, say Google has, I think, 11 or 13 data centers all across the face of this earth, inclusive of underwater data centers. And Facebook, where data centers they have, we are not aware of. But this humongous amount of data of, I think, 1.2 billion users or even 2 billion users, 1.2 or 2, I'm not very clear about it. But that is the number of users which they cater on a day-to-day basis, 24/7 basis. And they have been catering that large size of users for nearly last 10, 12, 14 years. Added to that, you have WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a medium which has literally taken over the complete communication system of the world. I think if WhatsApp were to stop today, I think the whole world will start in rebellion. So that is the capability of technology. That is the capability of innovation and penetration of technology. And that is the capability of that particular technology to completely immerse you. It is an immersive technology. Computation is something which we imagine. I don't think it is even at a level, at a nascent level of what these big companies do, or what these IT behemoths do. For us, it might finally end up in a pie chart or a bar diagram or some other output by which we are able to make out couple of parameters. But the whole churning of computation which has happened, which primarily you goes through the whole process, what you call as the big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, and then you get the actionable intelligence out of that exercise, and that actionable intelligence is what you get as the direction on Google, or that what you get a suggestion, or what you get on Amazon as the suggested books or the suggested items which you can buy. So that is the strength of that particular system. I'll give you a very personal example. So I was looking for a electronic board or whatever they call it, developed by a company called Spartec. So that is used for all your educational purposes and also turns out to be the screen of any computer system which you're using. And I just clicked on, I think, one of the companies or aggregators which is handling that particular product. I think it was India Mart, and after that, since yesterday till today, I have literally been plagued by calls and messages and emails. So this is the level where they have gone. They can make your life miserable. Any presence on the digital media which is not required should not be there. Otherwise, they will hammer you out and they will bring into a situation where you will not like, you will be wasting your time and they will be making their bucks. So this is the whole game. At the end of the day, the intelligence has to come out of it. If intelligence does not come out, then there is no purpose in creating this mammoth social media machine, and their whole mechanism is created in a manner that intelligence comes out. What is this intelligence? This intelligence is something which can be sold to the advertisers. Who is the customer? You and me. We are not the customers. The customers are the advertisers. And the juice which is provided out of your and mine interaction is intelligence for those particular advertisers. Advertisers will come only when they have a clear cut profile as to who you are and what is the nature of purchase which you will make. And that is not only decided by what you interact on the social media, but with the sites you go, the e-commerce sites and lots of websites, wherever you go, you are being tracked. So that is the capability and worth of advertising. Somebody was asking as to what percentage of social media data is monetized by Facebook, and the answer was 100%. So every single data point, every single data, every single interaction, every single sentiment, every single emotion, every single connect, every single network, every single contact, anything and everything is being monetized in a manner which you and me cannot imagine. So that is what is digital intelligence. So we move further. So controlled business model is completely controlled. You cannot interact in the manner you feel like. They will give you the system. You are supposed to interact in that particular manner, which will feed their systems, which will feed their model, which will feed their process, and they make the money out of it. Data is woven into an invisible lattice of coercion and control, not to mention as a source of enormous profit when sold to advertisers and other interested parties. So the data which you are interacting or which you are creating while you are interacting, so you feel that okay, is my data only Harvinder knows or Jaswinder knows or Lingappa knows or Nagesh knows or Karthik Reddy knows or whosoever somebody knows, and it is a bilateral interaction, and at the very best he will know that data and he can use that data or a company can use data. Beyond that there is nothing. But the mathematical capability, the coding capability, and the interconnects with the APIs in lots of other systems creates a lattice. It is a network of coercion and control. So that completely controls you. If you go through this movie called The Social Dilemma, you see how your profiles are made and how they control you. And it is basically that you are a puppet in these guys' hands. So that is the level to which it has reached. And while I was reading one of the books by Yuval Noah Harari, I think 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. So there he writes very clearly that the last thing which will be done, might be it is being done today also, that is hacking of your mind. These breaches, these hacks are nothing great. Finally, it will end up in hacking of your mind. And why these people are not able, or why the states have not been able to control them, is because their business and technology leave technology. Technology is only a facilitator both for them and us. It is a facilitator for us for social interaction. It is a facilitator for them to make huge amounts of money. And I think of the top companies today, but for one or two, I think Warren Buffett's, Berkshire Hathaway's, I think every single company is a IT company. And these IT companies have monopolized things. Actually, they're not IT companies also. The social media company is a media company. A e-retailer is e-retailer. But if they get into that sort of a diversification and legal naming, or legal division, or legal classification, they will cease to exist as IT companies. So this is the whole business controlled model, which has been created on unsuspecting masses all across the world. And in last 10 to 15 years, they have literally gained control over the world. And we are basically the subjects. We are not the customers. That is why we talk of social media users. It's like cannabis, it's like charas. So it is social media users. We never talk about social media as customers. So this is the difference. And what comes for free? They say in the US that there is no free lunch. And I keep on repeating what comes for free. The only thing which you are supposed to give in lieu of that, in exchange of that, is freedom. So whatever comes for free, you have to give back freedom as the cost for that particular free product or service which is given to you. How can you think that you are being provided a 24/7 brilliant service across the face of the globe where you don't have to spend a single penny? There has to be a business mechanism behind it, and this is the business mechanism which is behind this whole story. So, is it a disoriented world? I don't know what has been your understanding of social media so far, but after whatever I've explained to you in last nearly 45 minutes, do you feel that it is a disoriented world? I, for one, I feel that it is a disoriented world because finally my existence and your existence and the existence of the society has to finally merge seamlessly into something worthwhile, into something fruitful, into something which actually elevates our existence from the level which we were in the physical mode, using the digital medium, using the digital technology to a completely different level, rather than we being made pawns or we being made as tools or subjects or users to propagate, to facilitate, to create a business opportunity for somebody else. So in a way, if I extend this logic to a slightly different level, it can also be told that we are basically being trafficked by the social media. How the engagement has completely changed, even in the COVID-19 world. Mr. Trump, all of you are aware of, he spent 4 years in White House, being the most powerful person on earth, spending time on Twitter, engaging people in future, engaging people battling it out, getting into verbal duels, getting into abusive duels on basically a medium which we call as Twitter. Had Twitter not been there, I'm not talking about the benefits of Twitter, but had Twitter not been there, this issue would not have arisen. We would not have reached the age and stage where these people would have been able to communicate in a near direct manner with the rest of the world. The sanctity of the judiciary would remain, the sanctity of lot many other organizations will remain, also the sanctity of the intelligence agencies about which this guy has been cribbing from the day he has become president, or might be even before that, their sanctity also would have remained. To devastate systems, to devastate human beings, to devastate nation states, to devastate whatever you intend to, I think social media is one of the best tools, and that is the way it is being used now. It is not being used for creation, it is being used for destruction. It is not being used for knowledge, it is being used to limiting your knowledge. It is not being used to expand your knowledge, but it is being used to put you into a social media filter, or it is to an echo chamber that you keep getting information over and over again of the things which you are interested in. It might be a good interest or a bad interest. If today I decide that I should get information from nearly say 20 areas, I have to state. Otherwise, what I get is only whatever I've stated, or whatever they have transacted with me. So they will give me things, they will give me people, they will give me services, they will give me thoughts, they will give me ideas, which I want. And what do I want? Is what they have seen of me on the social media and whatever interactions I've been having on the digital medium. So that is my persona, that is Sanjay Sahai, and that is how I have fed by the social media giants of those information which they feel is ideally suited for me. So there is a different Google for everybody. So this is the moral of the story. There is a different Google for everybody, and given the nature with the way human beings are, and more so the Indians with their sentimental, emotional, fatalistic, inevitability sort of a mindset, social media, which was supposed to be the panacea for the masses, either who did not have work or who wanted to have huge amount of social interaction. So lo and behold, we have realized that we have not been able to achieve any of those things, and we have landed into situations which is basically embarrassing, which is humiliating, and we find lots and lots of suicides also happening because of social media posts. One thing you'll find very interesting, that 83% of the divorces in United States of America happen because of Facebook. And there the Facebook legally they have to give the information of whatever the search warrant is looking for, and based on that particular legal facilitation, 83% of the divorces are happening because of the Facebook evidence. And we don't know if the same law and the same capability we get in India also, India might also have the same number or might be higher number of divorces because of whatever interactions or whatever relationship which are being created, which are being sustained, which are being made robust, playful, fun, frolic, whatever, by the social media platform. What comes for free is a trade off on your freedom. So, this thought you should have in your mind every single time you want to express yourself on the social media. I think the largest amount of hacking and things of that nature, or social engineering, which has happened during the COVID 19 times, has happened on the COVID 19 theme. So somebody asks for some money, somebody asks for whatever. So once COVID 19 is put into the picture, then we become emotional. We feel that we should do something, or they will give you some information or some service which you feel that that will be helpful to elevate your immunity or whatever things which you have been facing for the last 10 months. So one is the freedom, and second is that you are being made completely insecure. Completely insecure means that you are being bombarded with knowledge, information, systems which you don't require. You don't require at all. And if you are if you finally click one of these things, you might end into a trouble which is unimaginable. Yesterday, somebody wrote to me that my Facebook has been disabled or it has been blocked. And what do? Do I contact Facebook? Say I'm not able to contact Facebook. Then there is no out. So there is a very interesting thing about this particular social media platforms or most of the IT companies. What they want to communicate, you will be communicated in split second. What you want to communicate to them or what service you want out of them, you are not able. You will never be able to get. I have nearly 9 broadcast groups on WhatsApp, and I write a daily blog, which I think we are reaching some 1,550 of those in the fifth year of its existence. And last, I think from the 3rd or 4th of December till 2 days back, some of the broadcast groups were not working, and I started doing research on how this thing can be sorted out. And I would accept that I've not been successful in doing that. And all of a sudden, day before yesterday, that started working once again. I'm not able, though I'm reasonably good in cyber security and I've been in this state for a long, long time. And I've been in technology for the last nearly 20 years, but I've not been able to sort it out. So nobody knows the code, nobody knows what is happening. And beyond a point, you'll not be able to fathom out anything. And if whatever they want to communicate, it will be there out there in the open. Oh, WhatsApp has put this new feature. Then this message will disappear in 7 days. This will happen, that will happen. So that is going on over and over again. But if you want to find out something, or you want to get a facility or a benefit or a problem to be sorted out, more often than not, it is never going to happen. And you see this picture. This guy is watching his smartphone. What is it all about? You see the posture of his neck. And every few degrees, I think the load goes more and more. And in a position of this nature, I think your load on your head, it becomes 4 kg more than when your head is erect, and you are spending nearly all the time in this posture or a similar posture. So what will happen to your neck bone? What will happen? We have absolutely no idea. Day in and day out, seeing the screen is not a very natural phenomenon. And if you're seeing the screen day in and day out for endless amount of time, how it will impact you, nobody knows. How much of Facebook data is monetized? I've been talking about it. And that is 100% of the Facebook data is monetized. And he is the gentleman who is the king of the social media. He is worth billions and billions of dollars. So that is where he is. And he started 10, 12 years back with nothing in a college dorm. This is what social media can generate. There's nothing tangible anywhere. It does not pay a single penny to the Indian government by taxes, and 20% of the people who subscribe to Facebook are in India. They're Indians. What is this business model? We can't make out whether it is a social media or it is anti-social media. When all of us are tied to it, and when the transaction is happening in this country and is making billions and billions of dollars out of the transaction which we make on that particular platform, the country does not get anything. And anybody who earns 2.5 lakh rupees ends up paying 10% income tax. So this is where we are. And we are not in a position how to take it further and connect the two, sort it out. It's going on and on. We have not been able to sort out anything. So this is where Facebook as it stands today. It is a global system that links 2.2 billion people. And you are allowed to post content indiscriminately. It is a self-service advertising system, precise targets, and massive surveillance. And this whole system has been created with a purpose, digitally very sound and robust. It is not a system which can be reformed, can be restructured, where the business values can change. And tinkering at the edges will take us nowhere. So this system, if it has to be controlled, it has to be controlled by the nation state where it is headquartered, and has to create systems of data audit, of data life cycle, of data processing, of data ownership, of consent, of permission, of being used for what purpose, and every single purpose has to be communicated back and taken permission of. And finally, my capability and my right and my fundamental right to data erasure, which means whenever, whatever I want to erase on this particular platform or any social media platform, So I should be competent enough technically, legally, and functionally to erase rather than keep begging somebody and it does not happen in years and years and years. A service that has invited more than 2.2 billion people to use it habitually and promiscuously. Very deliberately, this word is used promiscuously. Promiscuous means that it is free for all type. When you talk about somebody promiscuous in sex, which means he goes all around the place and have all sorts of relationship. So this is a service which is promiscuous in nature. It is not controlled. You can do whatever you feel like. Use it habitually and promiscuously for all sorts of purposes. Cannot expect all people to behave well. So that goodness of human beings, all that concept does not work. But whenever it comes to any congressional meeting, congressional review, or they land into any legal dispute, so they will talk about that they believe in the goodness of people. If we also believe in the goodness of people in this very same manner as Facebook believes in the goodness of people, I don't think there was a need of any law, rule, enforcement, implementation for anything anywhere on the face of this earth. Precisely the opposite is true. So, this is the message which I want to send across to all of you that the opposite is true. But when it comes to a public stance, when it comes to talking things which are politically right, so this is being talked about. But the act at the back end, what is happening is that we are being ripped apart from their firm belief in their own omnipotence and benevolence to a die-hard commitment to a flawed business model. So, what they will talk about? They will talk about their benevolence, that they have brought a service to mankind by which communities can be made, by which things can be changed. People can live in a mental state of happiness, of well being, of a seamless social connect, of a multimedia seamless social connect. And in reality, what is happening is it is a flawed business model for us. For us, it is a flawed business model, not for them. For them, it is a robust money making machine which can make cash registers ring for all times to come. So, this flawed business model which is put on us with a very clear cut, well thought out, manipulated, orchestrated system of deployment for free across the face of this earth cannot lead to benevolence. It was not meant to lead to benevolence. And I was talking about earlier about the filter bubble. So you get into this, you start getting information which you like, which they feel that you like. And the more you get into areas, more you will get the social connects, you'll get the friends, you'll get the material, you'll get the news feeds. You get literally anything and everything. What the value of those news feeds, nobody knows. But suffice to say that you get stuck up in that social media filter bubble and you remain there and basically you from a very global citizen you are brought back to that parochial regional segmented sort of a living. It might not be geographically, but might be by way of thought process, by way of mindset, by way of capability, by way of what you read, by way of movies, by way of YouTube videos, whatever it might be. So this gentleman called Ali Pariser, he's an internet activist. So he came up with this concept of filter bubble way back in 2010. From 2010 to 2020, I think this 10 years can safely be told as the age of the social media. And in the age of the social media, how it has spread like wildfire and also the intensity of its usage is something which the world has never seen in its history. What is a filter bubble? So term was coined by him. So that I've already told you. So it is a state of intellectual isolation. So instead of being a stage of intellectual fulfillment, which the social media is trying to communicate to us and trying to display to the world, instead of intellectual fulfillment, it is intellectual isolation. And that is a result of what? That is a result of your searches. So whatever searches you do, whatever footprint you leave on the digital medium, so the whole thing is packed into a algorithm. and that algorithm then goes through like a crawler all throughout its system and will give you and pieces of information which user would like to see, which they feel as per that algorithm that user would like to see. Based on what? The information about the user, such as location, past click behavior, and search history. So next time you are clicking on something, you just think once again, spend some time. Every click, you are putting a bit of you, a portion of you into the public domain, a portion of you which can be monetized, a portion of you that can be misused. We know of social media pictures or videos. I think today only I was going through this morning Times of India and these honeypot mechanisms which are operating. And one person, I think he was from IT itself, he lost some 26 lakhs and somebody has lost 24,500. So this is the nature of a very different sort of a trafficking which is happening out there, which creates pictures and videos of things where you are in a totally different intimate relationship, and that is being used for blackmail, and people are falling prey to it. So this is where the story is, and we don't realize. And I presume and I believe, uh, and I also say that might be, if it is not true, it's better, but that is not the case. There are tons and tons of people who have already been blackmailed, who have already been bullied. We know of the that boys locker group in Delhi and what has been happening there. And those were the kids between, I think, 13 to 20 years of age. Only two of the members of the boys locker group, they were adults. And they were only, I think, running the whole show. And the nature of pornography, nature of thought, nature, somebody even stated of rape, which he intends to do, lots and lots of things. So that was happening in South Delhi, which is one of the very posh areas in Delhi. And it's generally, and they were the kids who were going to good schools, who vitiated them. Certainly, the issue also lands on the doorstep of the parents. But also suffice to say that there is a platform which has been available, and the platform has no control whatsoever on whatever is being shared by the platform, by whom it is shared by the platform, what purpose it is being shared on the platform, what impact it will make. So that responsibility the social media platform cannot evade. It is evading, should not evade, it is evading, and has never been brought to book at a level and at a punishment or at a compensation or at a fine which has actually hurt any of these social media IT behemoths. So news feeds. So most of the times you keep seeing people are scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. What they are seeing, we have absolutely no idea. But they spend hours and hours going through the news feeds. Actually, there are no news feeds, and there is no news in them. It's the people who are like you who have decided to waste their time, energy, their youthful years in posting, posting, and posting what God only knows, and that has become the news today. It is a tragedy of our existence that most of the news, whether it is social media or electronic media or the print media, news has gone into the backwaters. You don't get news. You get stories, you get crooked stories, you get propaganda, you get whatever you can get, anything and everything but for the news. News is something which is factual, cannot be debated, and this is the something which is a fact of life. It is a data, it is a figure, it is an incident. It is something of that nature. It is something like birth and death, something very similar to that. You cannot change it. I told you earlier, everybody has his own Google. So whatever you want to see in the Google and whatever Google shows to you, so primarily it goes through a filter of your personality, whatever is documented, your social media habits, sites you have been going, and because anyway, all the searches you do on Google. So Google is a very rich repository of every single movement of yours, and they have made it their responsibility to make money out of this exercise, and Google is going places doing this. So this is terrible for deliberation. Now, when you spend most of your time on social media, you are not getting into any deliberation. Deliberation is something which improves you. Deliberation is something which allows you to use your mind. It allows you to apply your mind to issues, to thoughts, to different causes, to allows you to think. Social media is slowly taking out that capability out of that human being. Who will think for you? The social media will think for you. The algorithm will think for you. There'll be lots and lots of other tools which will think for you. You are not supposed to think. And the day a human being becomes a non thinking animal, he loses the distinction between animal and human beings. So that is where we broadly are. And what data keeps on coming through this whole system? What do you do with that? Monetization is one part of the story. Monetization for what purpose, in which capability, in which manner, which is liked by us, which is liked by the user for right purposes. Now nobody can define. Nobody knows it is being used in which manner, for what purposes, for whom. So what we have finally reached today is data manipulation. Data is being manipulated in more ways than one. Data is being manipulated at the drop of a hat. Data is being manipulated for disturbing you, for money laundering, you name it and have it. Whether it's pedophile, whether it's women trafficking, most of the women recruited by ISIS, it happened on the social media, on the internet relay chats, which are completely encrypted. They have taken weeks and weeks together. And there's one exercise, I think it was done by a European journalist, where she became, or she behaved, or what do you say? She was playing the role of a subject, and that interaction for went on for nearly 1 month. And to make it objective and very empirical, there was somebody who was watching her from the same organization. And the way that the internet chat process or internet relay chat progressed, and within 1 month she was completely brainwashed, which means the inputs which came to her, the time and the intensity by the person who belonged to ISIS, who were at the was at the other end, I think will be sufficient enough to change, to brainwash, to literally give your mind to somebody else's control. That was good enough. That was documented in a book. I don't remember the name of the book, and that I've gone through that book, and it is really crazy. So this is where we are, and where does it go? It does not end up with only recruitment for ISIS or things of that nature. It goes to the presidential elections of United States of America. So it is at their beck and call to manipulate elections in the strongest of the countries, the wealthiest of the countries, the most stable of the countries, the biggest army. Now you see, army is on one side, and this invasion is happening on the other side. We can call it a digital invasion, right? That is also happening. The plot to hack America is a New York Times bestseller, best-selling author. Might be this book itself was a bestseller. How Putin's cyber spies and WikiLeaks tried to steal 2016 elections. So this is where we are. Democracy can be hacked. You can be hacked. Communities can be hacked. Your brain can be manipulated. The ocean model of psychology, I think it is somewhere a part of this lecture. So you will realize how this ocean model of psychology has become very successful for the first time in human history, because we have the data to support, we have the data to research, we have the data to get into findings, and we have the computational capabilities, and we have the capability to bring data from all across the face of this earth in a seamless manner, put it into this algorithm, and finally decide what your brain is. Brain, what we thought was completely under our control, and human is something which no machine can mimic. Suffice to say that it is nothing great about the human brain, and there are systems and neural networks and algorithms which can safely tell you as to what you will think, how you will think, when you will think, and for what purposes you will think. This is the history of cognition, and this is the future of cognition. So this is what happens. Russian intelligence officers hacked email accounts of the Hillary Clinton and also of the Democratic National Committee servers. Out of these two pieces of information, huge, humongous databases, text, pictures, literally anything and everything, used online personas and WikiLeaks to release stolen emails and documents, and this whole thing was spread all across the propaganda in favor of Trump on behalf of Russian intelligence agencies all across America, impacting nearly 80 million people. How much of it translated into votes in which manner? I don't think any research will ever be able to tell you. But this is the nature of damage which was intended to be done, and we don't know whether it was done to what level, for what purpose. Purpose we know, but how much, when, and how, and finally did it really impact the elections? So I don't think any research will ever be able to find out. So this was the tacit understanding between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica who, uh, has been closed since then. We are extremely happy that it is closed. And the beauty of this nefarious enterprise was that they were employing, I think, the best 15 AI scientists in the world. So this scientific fraternity, which was basically a very righteous community over a period of time, are ready to sell themselves off for money. I think might be that is the order of the day, and we cannot blame the scientist fraternity. But suffice to say, this is where we have reached, where the best of the artificial intelligence scientists work with organizations which are nefarious in nature, and their job is to bring down democracies from the face of this earth. Democracy for the founder, Alexander Nix of this company called Cambridge Analytica, it's just a battle of fear and hope. So you have to play around with fear and hope. There is no delivery, there is nothing else is required. If you are able to play around with fear and hope, then you will be able to manipulate a democratic decision in whichever way you feel like in any election in any part of this world. And he has been talking about this whole theory. This theory has been applied in large number of places, and what he calls is the power of big data and psychographics in the election process. So this was his product. He has sold successfully, he has used successfully, and he brought even Cambridge University into disrepute. And this is how things went on. People don't know, people don't want to know as long as their vested interests are being met. And people like Alexander Nix and people like Mark Zuckerberg, they're not bothered as to by what means and in which manner they are achieving their goal. Their goal is money. Whether social order remains or social order gets destroyed, where political order remains or there is no political order in this world, they are least bothered about it. Every other website making money from tracking based advertising. I told you, this is tracking based advertising. And every single website, I don't know of any exception, which does not make money out of tracking based advertising. So this is where we are. And this is the ocean model where you develop the capability of hacking human mind. And O means for openness to experience, C is consciousness, E is extraversion, A is agreeableness, and N is neuroticism. So this will on this you define who is at what level, and based on that they do the mapping of your mind. Based on the mapping of your mind, they decide what is to be pumped to you, what multimedia material, in which manner, captioning, thought process, video, clippings, voices of people you might like to completely change your mind. This is the big five of the ocean model. Ocean model is a very old psychology model, but it has not been able to hack human mind till recent times. Why it has not been able to hack human mind till recent times? Because of the reason that enough of data was not available. Data at a very small level for research purposes, a research sample through questionnaire, it was gathered, and some small findings they came up with. Those findings were extrapolated for the community or the society for which the research was being done. That was nearly all. Now is social media into full bloom. You're getting data and data and data. After that, you have tools, you have computational power, for that particular data, and you have machine learning, artificial intelligence tools who can bring meaning and intelligence into that particular data for precisely the purposes for which they intend to use this data. So we are in the process of hacking human mind. And this is the way Facebook makes billions and hundreds and billions of dollars through a process which should not have happened. It is antisocial. That is why we call it, I call it as the antisocial media. There are other people also across the face of this earth who find it to be an antisocial media. It is the manipulation of data for things for which we have not divested our data. That manipulation and utilization in a very, very mathematical, coded, crafty, cunning manner to give it to advertisers, to give it to political parties, to do for whatever purposes. That is how Facebook makes its millions. And this is what happened in the US presidential elections 2016, where 50 million Facebook users they were exposed. The data was exposed. How the data was exposed? It is Facebook which exposed the data. It's not that the users did anything wrong. Users were going as per the protocol, as per the process, as per whatever they knew. This exposed raw data of 50 million profiles went to Cambridge Analytica, which was a political consulting firm which worked on the Trump campaign. And this is the process which we which they went into. What they paid was $2 to $5 to take a detailed personality political test. So this is what they did in the name of Cambridge. I think there are lots of people who were ready to do that. So data and personal information. So that came to Cambridge Analytica, and through their personality quiz results, they were able to profile the psychological pattern. They did not end up with those 50 million. They went into friends. So that opened a huge gamut of possibilities which they started working with and created a superior set of records. Initially 2 million in 11 key states, and then it went more and more. How much they impacted in which might left to you. But the mathematical formula, the psychological stance, and the capability of social media reaching them, the artificial intelligence being used by Cambridge Analytica, and becoming and getting into lateral entry into a political process, to a democratic process in an election process. I don't think there can be anything more illegal than that. But that they have done, and they are still free, up and running. Technology, money, company, everything is happening. Friends data amounting to 50 million raw Facebook data. These individuals could then be targeted with highly personalized advertising based on their personality traits. Where did it all happen? It happened in Arkansas, in Colorado, in Florida, Iowa, Louisiana, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Oregon, South Carolina, and West Virginia. So this is the gamut, and this is what has come to light. This has come to light. I think nearly 2 years after the whole thing transpired, we are not aware of the fact that had there been a bigger damage. Because when you get into a breach, when you get into nefarious operations of this nature, you are not even sure what has happened, when it has happened. Only when things come to light, we feel that has happened. Unfortunately, we also feel that what has come to light, only that much has happened. But that is not the case. The boys' locker room in Delhi, so only one group was caught. But I think, to best of my understanding and whatever experience and capability and competence and expertise I have, this is not one group. There will be at least thousands of groups, if not lakhs of groups. And the beauty of this whole exercise is when they want to manipulate for money, then they get into very exact details. When they want to give a drama of whatever they are not doing, but they want us to believe, then it goes like this, that the Facebook learned about the data lake through a Guardian expose in 2015. They were unaware of it. They came to know only of through the Guardian expose and told Cambridge Analytica and Krogan, might be one agent there, to delete the user data. They took both the parties at their word and at the word that they had done so. Beautiful. This is how businesses run. This is how data runs. So this is the sort of a lip service. This is the way they have been throwing dust in our eyes and taking their party ahead. And when they were asked for some information on somewhere, in August 2016. Straight away they have denied. They have absolutely no data. When you look at these letters, you feel, oh, it is so well done, and they are such nice, pious people who are bothered about individual freedom. They have business ethics. Actually, they don't have any. And clear cut, what they write? This is a request for any document relating to investigations possibly undertaken since 2014 by ICO concerning companies called Cambridge Analytica and SCL Group. What is the response? We have performed a thorough search of our records and can confirm we do not hold any information that falls in the scope of your request. What happened finally? All data was manipulated. 80 million users' data has been manipulated, and this is the way they report. And nobody comes to know. Some casework at ico.org.uk, all sorts of stuff they keep playing. So this is the election meddling case, and because of Trump and lots of other issues, and the immunity which the U.S. president carries as long as he's the president of United States of America, so this the U.S. drops the election meddling case. If the main person, if the political persona, if the president of the country himself is interested in getting things manipulated, what else can you do? Department of Justice's prosecutors had to choose between weaker suit and compromise of classified material. So the difference between a weaker suit and compromise of classified material. And who tells that? The prosecutor says. The Department of Justice says. Who is in control of Department of Justice? So this is the story. So social media does not end with social media. It does not end with you and me. It does not end even with politicians. It ends, might be, or even beyond. It does not end even with nation states. It does not end even with the election of U.S. president of the U.S. president. And the same thing they said was happening this time. So far, so good. John Biden becomes the president-elect after a very legal, rigorous election process. So presumably nothing has happened. We'll have to see how long we have to wait to find out as to whether something has happened or not. We hope and we pray that nothing has happened and everything has come back to normal and the democratic process has finally prevailed. Whether it has not, only time will tell. Machinations of today would only be unraveled tomorrow if it happens. So have it this in your mind that machinations of today would only be unraveled tomorrow. It is not going to get unraveled today. It will be unraveled only tomorrow. And that also if it happens. It is not necessary that it will be unraveled. So this is where we are. And as we move further, we realize that it has not ended with this particular game, that is the US presidential elections. Precisely the same thing happened in the UK referendum. UK referendum also we are made to believe has been a manipulated referendum. One case by I think Guardian or one of these very reputed news magazines or newspapers. So that lady, the journalist was from Ireland, and the Ireland story was throwing up complications and contradictions of a totally different kind. And this lady went to her hometown to investigate as to why this sort of a very concocted sort of a result emerged. Because Ireland did not have any expats, Ireland did not have any wrong connection with European Union. They have never been disadvantaged. So when this lady goes there who belongs to that particular town, goes all around the place, all good things which has happened to that place has happened only because of the European Union. And there are boards proclaiming same of the investment of literally anything and everything. And finally she realized there is the manipulation of the social media which was able to completely vitiate the minds of the electorate who voted for the referendum and who voted for Brexit. And there was lies which was spread that Turkey is joining the European Union and that this particular small town will be flooded by expatriates. Suffice to say, there was only one Canadian person who was living in that particular town and that particular small town had hardly seen any foreigners, had hardly seen any expats. this whole thing has built up. I think the research on the British referendum has not been to the level of what happened in the United States of America. Might be, I think, a bigger level of research, more of resources, more of funding for this particular research could help find the wheeling dealing of Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and the people who were favoring referendum and how they gained out of it. So it was a manipulated referendum. That is for sure. How much of manipulation has happened? We are unaware of. So there is also a terrorism angle to social media, and cyberspace has been the theater, and social media its main tool. ISIS has been one of the organizations that really been into the thick of social media, and they have been able to create social media as a force multiplier, social media to train people, social media to spread their message around, to create a very, very slick sort of a social media machine. And they say that the ISIL social media machine has been the best of what a social media machine can be, that it went on for a very negative, nefarious, antisocial, criminal purpose. That is a different story altogether. But the professional acumen of the people who were running the social media machine for ISIS, that has been commendable. So cyberspace has been the theater and social media its main tool, and that is how the ISIS ran for long many years, has been able to control the imagination of people all around the place. This is the digital caliphate, and ISIS, we can also call it, as besides being a jurisdictional power, a geographical power, a terrorist group. I think the first terrorist group which has controlled a geographical area, named it as their controlled area, was also a digital caliphate. So it used to produce 25,000 plus pieces of social media per day and use the dark web and encrypted application. So this is where it is, and it was in large number of languages, primarily in Arabic, followed by French and English and Russian. So this is where it is, and there's a thorough immersion in violent extremist cyberspaces. So they went to internet relay chats, they created cyberspaces, they created spaces where people would come, and there the top manipulators, people who were psychologists, people who knew how to manipulate people based on this ocean and lots of other researches they also have been doing. Based on that, they pick up these people, take them through the internet relay process, manipulation, and all sorts of talking, being comfortable with them, making them comfortable, on, and finally they bring them to their side. Lots of them they even came to Syria. They went into this whole process. The women who were supporting the jihadis were supposedly going to heaven, and things of that nature. Is a make believe story which was sold with huge amount of elan, and they were able to get people. I think there were 10 or 12,000 people who were ready to join, I think, every single month. And the base was the social media radicalization, what we call as the online radicalization, based on the information which is available in the social media and on the manipulation by the human resources of ISIS, and also by the digital technologies which they have been using. So this is what they did with the social media. It has been described as by one of the experts as probably more sophisticated than most of the US companies. And they were beheading videos which were put all around the place. Other videos, magazines, flyers. It was literally like a multinational corporation which was getting into a media blitzkrieg, creating creating the sentiments which they wanted: fear, scare, fear psychosis, faith, trust, loyalty. Simultaneously, all these things were happening. It was on Twitter, on Facebook, on Telegram, on YouTube. Social media helped them to garner their following. I went through one of the lectures in National Police Academy by a researcher who spent 10 years in all these hotspots of the world, and see a couple of very, very uh, dangerous, scary videos of what these people have been doing there. And it was a very high quality production. It was not some odd job of some amateur and all that. They were all professionals. They say that they had some 100 media insurgents. So these are the digital jihadis, and they dedicated themselves to the social media, to creating videos, to creating content which was of the highest quality. And this we know as Jihadi John. I think most of you also would have heard of Jihadi John. So it's believed to be the person. in several videos produced by Islamic extremist group ISIL, yeah, showing the beheading of a number of captives in the year 2014 and 2015. So this is what they have been able to create and recruit people from all across the face of this earth. And they have gone into the psychological attributes. See, there's a huge amount of research which is happening in social media. There's a huge amount of research happening on marketing side, on money laundering, literally any and every aspect for which you want to derive the data, the information, and the capability of the social media. Unfortunately, people who are using this, they do absolutely no research. They feel that it is a holy land in which they are getting into, and they can live the way they feel like, and there's absolutely nothing wrong which is going to happen to them. So attributes to join ISIS: status seeking, identity seeking, revenge, redemption, thrill, theology, justice, and death. So the combination of these attributes they have been able to make out through the social media, and then they actually get onto your loneliness, this, that, all sorts of stuff, and they try their social media tricks, their talking capabilities, their manipulation, and they're able to win over recruits for themselves. So in 2014, from 46,000 to 90,000 handles advocated by ISIS or run by the supporters, then the Twitter action, and then they went to Telegram, JustPage.it, and SureSpot. There are 800 handles, Twitter handles, which lots of nation states tried to disable and they're not able to. And it was this organization, a hacking organization called Anonymous. They were able to disable 800 Twitter handles of ISIS. So you see the technical capability which large number of governments don't have is the technical capability which a hacking group has. And we have engineers and technologists and professors and researchers and scientists doing the same job over and over again, but they are not able to reach a capability and expertise which will actually help mankind. But whereas the small hacking group sits and creates a technical capability which is one of its kind and is able to disable 800 Twitter handles against the wishes of Twitter. So this is the nature of capability we are talking about. This happened in Manhattan. This fellow dropped this vehicle. So these are the lone wolves. This is the nature of radicalization which was happening in those particular days. And this, I presume, this Syed Rizwan Farouk and Tasfin Malik. So they were in that San Bernardino case. And auto mode. Once you switch on the ignition, it goes on, and you yourself don't know at how many lone wolves will come, how many people will radicalize. And this whole process of the factory of terror, it will be propagated on a mass scale. This is what happened in Christchurch with all your artificial intelligence, things of that nature. This particular extremist who was out for the blood of Muslims, and nearly 54 people he killed, and he was carrying, I think, a camera on his head, and it was telecast, or it was broadcast, or it was live streamed on Facebook for nearly 13 minutes, and their whole technology apparatus of Facebook was not able to catch him. After that, they literally, I think they disabled that particular video. But suffice to say that anything which comes on the digital medium, it remains on the digital medium. It is very difficult to get away with that. But that is how it is in goodness. Lots of channels and lots of media houses, they did not play that particular video. But that video happened, and Facebook was not able to catch with 15, 20,000 people, as it claims, who was the videos and the AI tool which runs on the video and controls the video. So in New Zealand, challenge to Facebook, Twitter, and this thing over violent act. US tech groups must take responsibility for website. So this is what they say. So this is what has happened, and this is the crisis situation. Suspected crisis shooter posted a manifesto on Facebook and broadcast what appear to be live footage of the attack. What the electronic media, what nobody can do, is happening on the social media without any even slightest iota of the platform or the individual doing something wrong. Facebook is still live and kicking. It's making its billions of dollars, and the world also behaves as if nothing wrong has happened. And till the time we don't react to this sort of a social media intervention of our life, of our existence, of our social existence, of our political existence, even when it comes to life and death of terrorism, I don't think things are going to change. Facebook, always in a dark. It has got into the habit of being in the dark and coming out of it or living with it and still making huge amount of money. And nothing greatly changes. There's absolutely nothing which greatly changes. The video spread to other sites, including Twitter, YouTube, which is owned by Google. So video went all around the place. And this is what is the Indian story. It is not limited to Christchurch, not limited to this place or that place. The social media is doing equally damaging stuff all across the face of this earth. We have had these lynching stories, I think 1.5, 2 years back. And what did WhatsApp do? It did only one thing, that they created some officer which will look into the grievances of the Indian government and the Indian law enforcement agencies. Where is the information? Where is the officer located? I think he or she is located somewhere in the US. What more did they do? They stopped the forward messages to 5. I think when you're sending it to a group or to an individual, whichever way. So that is all that they did. Mob lynching was propagated, facilitated, technically, technologically enabled only because of the social media. But we could not do anything with that social media. So our whole social fabric is in catharsis. The whole social fabric is in catharsis. Where it will go, how it will go, what will change, what will not change. We have absolutely no idea. The parents don't know what the children are doing. It has become a messy, messy affair. Parenting has become an art and a science or a liability or a responsibility or a ownership or whatever. God only can save. So there's a surreptitious behavioral change which is happening in all of us without realizing. We believe that nothing has happened to me, but that is not the case. If somebody comes from outside and checks whatever behavioral changes has happened in me over the last, say, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, he'll be able to find it. But unfortunately, all the people are going through the same exercise, and most of the people, but for few exceptions, have been undergoing that surreptitious behavioral change, which is being dictated by somebody else. Humongous data with integrity, real time and dynamic. You can literally make fun out of this data. You can do anything with data. Otherwise, before the social media, before digital medium, and before the internet, there's absolutely no way of finding data with integrity, data at real time, data which is dynamic, data which is connected to geography, data which is connected to social context, data which is connected to business, data which might be connected to research, data which will help you even to foresee what is happening in future, data which has patterns, data which has correlations, data which can have intelligence. I don't think this was possible before this whole thing happened. And this is how we exist, and this is what is called as the attention extraction economy. So their job is to keep you tied to your smartphone or whatever gadget for largest amount of time so that they keep gaining your attention and keep extracting that data from whichever means, in whichever way, when you are sleeping, when you are awake, when your location, when this connect, that connect. So this is the world which we live in, and all of us have become what? We have become lab rats. So that is the definition we can do. We have become lab rats, and they are the people who are running this whole show. So what is social media? Finally, we started with one definition. We are coming to the other definition, and this is a more reliable, more academically sound, more professionally sound definition, and more on the back end side than on the front end side. So social media is a commercial product, mathematically crafted and operated to monetize every single interaction. For what purposes? Unassailable power, a power which is unassailable. You cannot touch, you cannot change, you cannot do anything with him. For what purposes? To influence business enterprise. It is to influence business enterprise through de facto ownership of data. Who is the owner of the data? We are the owner of the data. De jure, by law, we are of the owner data. But in reality, those companies are the owner of the data. It is de facto. de facto ownership of data. And if you feel that these are the guys who are technologists who are doing everything, I don't subscribe to that. They are huge legal brains, they are huge financial brains. These tech entrepreneurs are one of the kind human beings who have been able to transform themselves and the whole world for right or wrong. That only the future will tell whether transformation is happening. There is absolutely no way out. What does this mean for the user? It means for the user that you'll be exploited, exploited, and only exploited, and nothing else is going to happen. Are you comfortable with the social media? I think everybody is comfortable with the social media, but having gone through this whole exercise, you will realize actually nobody is comfortable with social media. If you understand the pitfalls, if you understand the adverse usage, if you understand that we are being manipulated, and still if you are comfortable with the social media, I think that is a different comfort level. Or you know the privacy setting, you know how to use the social media, you know how to remain safe on the social media. If you know the limits of the social media, if you know your limits, if you know the connects, if you know the whole social media ecosystem, and you are able to traverse it with comfort, with control, with sanity, with rationality, with logic, I think then it's perfectly fine. But I'm not sure of the fact as to how many of us have reached that level of social media maturity, as we call it. How much time do you spend? For every single thing, we assign a fixed amount of time. For social media, also, necessarily, we should give some amount of time. You intend to interact, there is no other methods of social interaction. Okay, social media is fine. Reality is that you are 24 hours on the social media. Before you sleep, the last thing is social media. And when you get up, the first thing is social media. If you want to spend 1 hour on the social media, you'll spend 5 hours on the social media. So this is where we are. How all does it impact? It impacts in literally any and every manner, from your relationship with your colleague, with your child, with your boss, with the enterprise, with government, with social revolts, with agitation, literally anything and everything. And we have these farmers on the outskirts of Delhi, I think in their fourth week of agitation. And might be social media is playing a huge role to get them connected and also providing them the opportunity in phase where we have lots of electronic media committed to the government. So these people are giving an alternate voice. Alternate voice it was supposed to be. But it was not supposed to be a tool of propaganda, a tool of exploitation, a tool of extraction. How do we navigate our way as we move further in life and times of the social media? Social media is not going to go anywhere. It is there to stay. What all takes precedence over social media in your life? What all takes precedence over the social media? I have absolutely no idea. But whatever I have seen of people, I don't think anything takes precedence over the social media. Generally, they give the maximum time to the social media, and but for very grave emergencies, I think they keep continuing with the social media. Are you in control of the social media habits? You talk to people, most of you will tell, no, no, you are complete control of social media habits. I don't think it is so. We have a digital de-addiction center in Nimhans, and there the concerned doctor, Dr. Manoj Kumar Sharma, who also works with me on a couple of projects, he will tell you what digital de-addiction is like, and that nearly 2 to 3 of every 5 persons are addicted to the social media, and very few people realize that they have been addicted to the social media. And this is where it comes to that we are in a commercially created digital mess, and we suffer of what we call as the FOMO. So we get a feeling that we are getting left out. So the gnawing fear that we are missing something important. And there's absolutely nothing which is happening on the social media. Your guys who are doing this whole drama, but you feel there's a fear of missing out which is there in you on a permanent basis. Actually, there's nothing great happening. There's nothing momentous happening. There's nothing iconic happening. But you always feel that I should be there. And that is the level of dopamine which it creates. And you cannot do without it. So it is a commercially created digital mess, and it is creating an interruption in your life, in your existence, literally anything and everything you do. And your students, their capability to focus, their capability to do a particular task for 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8 hours. their capability to work for 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, as we did when we were clearing the Indian civil services. I think that is completely lost. So it is a copy paste generation, a plagiarist generation, which is getting accentuated, I think, with every single day. And originality, application of mind, creativity, innovation, those things are we are missing out. And the nature of entrepreneurship which we see in this country, the less said the better. So our purpose on social media and network on the internet. So we should know what is our purpose. Otherwise, why should we be hanging around? Anywhere and everywhere we go, we know the purpose. If you go to from here to go to Delhi, you know for what purpose you are doing. But you are spending time and time on some social media platform for literally no purpose. What is the business model? Their business model we know. Do you have any business model? I write a daily post. I've been writing for every single day. I get into one-way communication with using WhatsApp, and very rarely I even see what comments I get. I push whatever I think. I have gained immensely in slightly more than 4 years. I 4 years of daily post. I finished on 26th of September, so I'm in my fifth year. So I've gained immensely out of it. Whether you have a business model, you have a practical model, you have a model where you can exploit the social media, or you will always remain exploited by the social media. It is your take. We have talked about filtered life, social media, and echo chamber also primarily on the same lines where you are fed with things, you are fed with people with ideas, thought processes which are similar to yours. And that is how they say if you can't face the world, then Facebook and this whole thing is a battle for data. So this is how Corona thing has been happening. It's all fake and fake. Quality of content, who will give you? Nobody will give you. WhatsApp has become an WhatsApp university. I think nearly 90, 95, 98% the information which we consume, which we digest, which we assimilate, and make our thoughts of is coming from the WhatsApp university. Nobody clears the content. Nobody knows from where it is. The attribution is a huge, huge problem in the very humongous, all pervasive content creation sort of a system which has been created in the social media, of which WhatsApp is the prime mover. The role in the COVID-19 ecosystem. So, whatever comfort it has given to us, all of us know. But whatever dangers has come through this, is a different story. And this is the couple of stories which has gone by in WhatsApp and on social media. And suffice to say that nearly, to best of my understanding, nearly 80 to 90% of whatever which we don't use for interpersonal communication or information which comes from a third party, I think 80-90% of that particular information, it is either fake or it is twisted or something wrong, distortion, something has happened to that. What is the way out? So this is the distortion age. So you will have to live at a level, you will have to think at a level where you have a detached existence and you use this whole mechanism to best of your advantage. Otherwise, you will be misused. So other things which happen on the social media profusely, which it happens day in and day out. So cyber stalking is their attack based on anger, revenge, and control. Cyber stalking is there. We'll not get into the details. We are coming to the close of this lecture. But cyber stalking is all around the place. 6.6 million people were stalked each year in the US. And that is way back, I think, in 2016 or something. Things would have completely, it is the 2013 figure. God knows what would have happened by now. So cyber stalking is not a joke, it's not romantic. It is a real crime, and this is what cyberbullying does to you. And we have large number of suicide which is happening in recent years. So it brings down the self-esteem. Suicidal ideation is there. Besides lots of emotional state and things of that nature. Privacy, which is inviolable, it cannot be transgressed upon. I think it is being transgressed day in and day out. Where are we in reality? There is no privacy. Privacy, they say, because you need security, so government will surveil on you. You need free services, so the private sector or the business enterprise will surveil on you because the espionage, intelligence, things of that nature. So literally, I am the target of surveillance of everybody. So this is a military government complex and the business enterprise NGO intelligence agency complex. And between the two, I'm the only subject, and they are having the better of me. Privacy cannot be a trade for convenience, but that is what it actually is. So world is held hostage. Data is hostage, and with data, we have also become hostages. How we will come out of it, I have absolutely no idea. Can sanity and security, can anybody bring sanity and security into our existence? Nobody is going to bring to us sanity and security. We have to bring it back. And if I cannot do for the community, I cannot do for the society or the nation, at least I should do for me. And if all of us start doing for themselves, I think we will change the world. There is a necessity, there's absolutely no other way out. The social media mental state is reversible. It is certainly reversible. We have to get out of it. We have to become more matured. We have to become logical. We have to be self-centered. We should have our vested interest. We should take care of ourselves. We should regain our individuality. We should regain the data, which is the most important asset which we have, and keep it under our control and miss out only wherever is extremely necessary, and that also at a generic level. Do social media internet companies know you better? Certainly they know us better than what we know of ourselves. So cyber is our life. There's absolutely no way out. COVID-19 has, I think, immensely proven it to us that we have to live in the existence which we live, and even in post COVID-19 days, I don't think it is going to go away anywhere. We might start physically moving, covering distances, and trying to give a sham of the life which we earlier had. But social media is there to stay, and we have to live responsibly. There is absolutely no other way out. We have talked about responsible digital living. We have to practice responsible digital living. Responsible digital living has to be our goal. We are here to support and facilitate. I speak this in most of the lectures, so you can take me as somebody who can support and facilitate responsible digital living. Digital living would help us envision our own future. Otherwise, it's very difficult to envision our the future the way we want. The time is not under our control. The interaction is not under our control. The mind is not under our control. Our friends are not under our control. Our directions are not under our control. What is fed to us is not under our control. So, what is under our control, and how do we control our future? Technology is just a facilitator of your dreams. So this, if it is there, the back of your mind, every single time, and the dangers which I've been talking about, the social media or the anti-social media, if both these things are there at the back of your mind, that there is somebody who is there to exploit you, treat social media as COVID-19 and all the precaution which you take for for COVID-19. So there are lots of precautions which all of us know. Please use all these precautions against the social media pandemic as well. The COVID-19 pandemic will go away with vaccine is already on the horizon, and people have started taking vaccine in different countries. It will happen in our country also in, say, a maximum of a month or so. But this social media pandemic is not going to away. Treat technology as just a facilitator. Use it only that way. There is absolutely no other way in which you can use. And this whole thing which we talk about, the Bangalore Cyber Security Awareness Program, the concept, the project, the methodology, the reach, and the future. So that I've been doing for social media and lots of other activities. And finally, we come to the final thought of this particular lecture. And this is what I intend to convey to you through you to your friends, relatives, and mostly to students, to change your view of social media and use it in a manner which I have been telling you. Use it in a manner which benefits you. Use it in a manner where you can progress. Use it in a manner where you can remain secure. Use it in a manner for close relationship. Use it in a manner which is not reckless. And so finally, this thought. So most of the time, even after a huge extempore of a couple of hours, finally I feel that it is important that I pen down my thoughts and that I take it as my last slide. And those thoughts should remain with you for all times to come. And those thoughts are that India yearns to provide a healthy way of academic and personal life for a common bright future. The country would remain indebted to us if we provide a successful model for a responsible digital living for our children and the youth. This would also help us ward off the impending cyber insecurity threats. Together we will, and together we can, create a new digital paradigm. Our time starts now. The journey has begun. I'm sincerely thankful to all of you for this rapt attention. Thank you.
So there is a question from Vikas Jain sir, sir. In chat
Yeah.
window, you can just go through that.
One second. By Vikas Jain. Is mob lynching due to political will or because of the spread of fake information in social media? What is your view? So it is because of political will, and it is facilitated because of the medium which we have and no control over the medium. But it certainly starts with political will, their intention to get into mob lynching.
Okay, sir. So participants, any other questions? If you have any questions, you can just ask, sir. Any questions from participants? I think Vikas Jain, sir, you can ask. Mm-hmm. Vikas, sir, you can just talk to the sir if you want to talk. Sir, Vikas sir is asking, do we stop using Facebook?
See,
Whether
there
we
is
should stop
this.
using.
See, there is nothing to stop or nothing to begin. All throughout the lecture, I've told you only one thing is that you should be in a position to use that particular tool to best of your advantage while remaining secure. So for that, what do you need? You need to understand that particular platform and the process and the settings and the way data is used. So first, you have to make yourself well informed as to where you are putting your data and for what use it can be put into, whether positive, negative, nefarious, criminal, whatever the case may be. And then you use.
Okay. Okay. I think no more queries from participants. Okay, thank you so much, sir. It was a
Thank
very
you.
informative session on how social media is playing an important role in present world and how we should be very careful in active accessing the different social media platforms. And it is a very nice, wonderful session. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope participants, you can just check the chat window and you can click on the feedback form link, and feedback form will be expires at 6 p.m. By that time, you can just give the feedback. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.